Well, good morning. You guys are probably thinking, who the heck is that guy, right? Hey, my name is Rick Flynn. I'm one of the pastors here at St. Paul's. I'm actually the campus pastor over in Carl Junction, so I've been there for, a couple of 3 years now, 4 years. But it is an honor to be here this morning with all of you. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about me. I want to start out with, like I said, just a little bit about me, because I'm assuming that most of you have no idea who I am. So let's start with that. I'm married to a beautiful, wonderful, amazing wife. Is she in here? Probably not. Anyway, so we've been married for just celebrated 30 years. It's our 30-year anniversary just in August, so that was amazing. It's amazing to me that she stuck with me that long is what I think, but it's been great. And the reason I say that is we didn't start off like just awesome with our marriage, but we did start off a little rough. We have 2 adult boys. They're older, Kyle and Ricky, and he hates it when I call him Ricky because he's the baby, but now he's like this tall, so he's Rick. I have to remember that. My oldest son, I have 3 grandbabies right now, but I'm getting ready to have 6 grandbabies. Check that out. How's that work? Figure the math on that. Well, my oldest son and his girlfriend are expecting a new son in November, and Starla has 2 babies from her previous marriage. So bam, I got 6 grandkids. How about that? That's how we start off. It's pretty cool to have an instant family, it seems like. This morning, we're going to start a new series, and that series is called Failing Forward, where we're going to look at the life of Peter and faith through his eyes, and how we can learn a little bit about Simon Peter, as some of you may already know his name. But before I do, I want to remind you to take some notes. I may say some stuff. I'm going to say a lot of stuff today that's really, really important. So I want you guys to take some notes and dig into that. You were handed a study guide when you came in, or actually it's out at the Life Desk. So if you guys can, get one of these, because these are amazing things, amazing tools for us to learn and dig into God's Word. One of the things that we say a lot is that don't just take my word for it, okay? I want you guys to read the Bible, dig into this study guide, and see what God has to say to you, because it's important. Don't just let me, be up here rattling stuff off. You need to double check that, especially when Aaron's up here. But so let me tell you a little bit more about the journey that brought me here today. I wasn't always this perfect angel that you see right now. I when I said that it's amazing that my wife and I are still married, or that she stuck with me, it was that first 2 years was pretty rough. At that time, I drank quite a bit, and I drank probably a 6-pack or more each evening. And then on the weekend, I would double that and have some fun and drink whatever I could, probably. What I was what a lot of people call a functional alcoholic, because I was ready to, good to go on Monday. I'd get up Monday morning and I could go to work, and things were fine. I'd just do it all over again. I did that for several years, actually. But eventually, I realized that I had to do something. Something had to change, and that something was me. And I wish I could say, boom, right then and there I did it, but it took about 20 more years to figure out how to change that for me. But by the grace of God, I have been sober since January 1st, 2006. So, yeah, thank you. Just so you know, that's 5,033 days, or 13 years and 9 months, so almost 14 years. It's pretty cool. That's enough about me for now. Let's learn about Simon Peter. Simon Peter is a pretty big deal in the Bible, or in the Gospels, next to Jesus, obviously. He is mentioned over 200 times. That's pretty cool. In the Gospels, all of the other apostles combined were only mentioned, I think it was 50 times. So that's really? Jesus is looking at these guys. There's a buddy of Jesus's. His name is John, the beloved. You guys remember John, the beloved? He's only mentioned 18 times. That's Jesus' best one and only, right? I think it's really cool that they called him the beloved, and I always wondered where Aaron got this because that's what he calls me. I'm the beloved pastor. So, it used to be Ben, but now it's me. But so Peter must have been pretty cool or a pretty big deal to be mentioned that many times in the Gospels. But we can learn a lot from him and his life and his story and his history. So we want to look at that, and we want to look at this, see what kind of lessons we can learn from this regular guy that turned into and became a follower of Christ, much like me and much like many of you. Peter's just a regular guy. His original name was Simon Bar Jonah. Now, Bar just means son. His dad was named Jonah, so he was the son of Jonah. Peter had a brother named Andrew that was pretty much the family at the start. You see, they lived in a town called Bethsaida. And this town of Bethsaida actually means, the word Bethsaida means house of fishermen. So that's what they did for a living. Simon and his dad and his brother, they were fishermen. When they got a little older, Simon and his brother actually inherited the fishing business. And then lo and behold, Simon runs into this really cute girl and ends up getting married. And so they moved to Capernaum, and that's where they make their living. So this is kind of the life of Peter so far. But what I want you to do with me right now is when we read the Bible, when we dig into God's word, it's kind of hard sometimes to get what he's saying, so we have to imagine what's going on. Anytime we read a book, it's all about our imagination and connecting to what he's saying. So I want you guys to all close your eyes right now and imagine something with me. Close your eyes and imagine Peter. You see, here they are. They're making their living as fishermen. They have these big, heavy nets, and they're throwing them out into the water in this heavy rope, and they're dragging it back in over and over and over, and then they throw it out again, and they drag it back in again and again and again, hopefully full of fish. And it's a hard job. It's tough for them. They do this over and over and over. So open your eyes, would you? These nets are circular, 9 feet across. They're heavy and just would wear a guy out. Can you imagine that? What that would be like? What do you think Peter's hands look like? Are they nice and beautiful and manicured like Aaron's? Or are they rough and a little bit dirty? Are they kind of, a working man's hands? When you imagine Peter, what do you think his language is like? He's a sailor, right? And he's out there fishing with his fishing buddies. Does he always tell knock-knock jokes? Or does he maybe tell some other kind of jokes? What do you think he does when he gets off work? When he and his buddies want to hang out maybe right after work, you're tired, you want to go do something. Do they drink Diet Coke or do they drink lemonade? Now, I do know that they had beer back then, so at least in my life, what I would have done is got with my buddies and got off work and drank some beer. So I'm imagining maybe Peter was like that. Because I spent, like I said, 20 years in the Navy, and I know a little bit about what it's like to be a salty guy, a regular guy. So sometimes I tend to see myself in Peter, and I think all of us can if we learn more about his story. So are you getting the picture of what Peter looks like? He's kind of this regular guy. He's a guy that struggles, a guy that has his own temptations, and he has a regular kind of job, right? He's out there fishing, and it's hard. He has a pretty simple life. He's kind of the salt of the earth type person. So one day Jesus shows up with John the Baptist is there, and Jesus shows up, and Andrew, remember Simon's brother, was there, and John the Baptist is like, hey, that's the guy you want to follow. That guy over there, he's the Messiah. That's the guy. You need to go and be with him. Don't follow me. I'm not even able to tie his shoes, right? Go follow that guy. And Andrew's excited about it. So what does he do? He runs home, and he gets his brother, and he's like, come on, you got to meet this guy, Simon. Come with me. Come with me. And he brings Simon to where they're at, and there's Jesus. And Jesus being Jesus, what does he do? He looks at Simon Peter, and he's like, you know what? You need a new name. Jesus liked to give people nicknames. We know of a few of them, right? James and John were known as sons of thunder. Is that not a cool nickname? The sons of thunder, right? Do you imagine that, like a tag team, Hulk Hogan coming running out and smashing somebody with an elbow or something? That's what I see, sons of thunder. But John tells it this way. Now, when Jesus looked at him, he said, you are Simon, son of Jonah. You shall be called Cephas, which is translated as stone or a rock. So you have Simon here with Jesus. He changes his name. Simon, buddy, you're going to be the rock from now on. And Peter's like, well, that's cool. What does that mean? He's like, well, Petros means rock. in Greek. Just a rock. You are the rock. And Peter's like, well, cool. I'm the rock. Is that not cool? That's amazing. And nickname. Oh, by the way, nicknames. Some of you may know. Did you know Pastor Aaron has a nickname? Does anybody know what it is? No? Oh, Ace. Nobody. You're going to have to work on this nickname thing. Ace. He likes that guy, Ace Ventura, the pet detective. He likes to be named after that guy. Ouch. I know. I may never get to come back. So... let's fast forward a couple months, all right? Or a month and a half or so. We have Jesus here, and Peter goes to him. He's been, around Jesus. Jesus has been there in Capernaum teaching and things like that. And Peter goes to him, Simon Peter, the rock. And he says, hey, Jesus, man, my mother-in-law's sick. And well, you guys are with your wives. Don't say this. How many of you go to Jesus and ask him to come to your house to take care of your mother-in-law? But he's like, my mother-in-law's sick. Can you come and pray for her? And Jesus is like, sure, I can do that. And this is what it says in the Bible. Matthew tells us this way. And when Jesus had come into Peter's house, he saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed, ill with a fever. So he touched her hand, and the fever left, and she rose and busied herself serving them. This is one of the first times that Peter and Jesus have like this real connection that kind of bonds them. Another opportunity for Jesus to kind of draw him into the gospel or into the ministry. Why do you think he wanted to do that? Well, it's believed that Jesus actually lived with Peter and his family in Capernaum. Now, why would you move in with the guy that you kind of just met? I guess it's been a month and a half or so, and you're living with him, if you had a plan. I think Jesus had a plan for his life. This plan would not only change Peter's life, but it actually will change our lives here today if you're a follower or a disciple of Jesus. I want to talk to you a little bit about the first time that I felt a call in my life. Now, I'd mentioned that I was in the Navy. I got recalled and sent to Iraq. I spent 7 months in Iraq in this kind of dangerous combat zone and did what I had to do. And then I come home, and I'm in California, kind of demobbing is what they call it, demobilizing. I spent some time there, and you had to get ready to go back into normal society because it's a little different over there. Well, like I said, 7 months there, and I'm praying. And I'm asking God, God, man, I lived through that when so many didn't. I survived, and when so many didn't, you got to have a plan for now what? And it's kind of crazy. You're going to think I'm weird or whatever, but I got this, like I could almost hear him, this feeling down deep inside, and he's like, teach. I hear this word, teach. Go teach. I get chill kind of feeling that right now when I say it like that, and so I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I finish up my demobilization process. I go home, and I go back to school. And I jump right in Missouri Southern over that way, I think. I get turned around in here. But I go to Missouri Southern, finish my biology degree, or Bachelor of Science in Biology, and then I go and start applying for jobs. Apply everywhere in this community so I could stay close to home. Not one job. This takes a while, you apply and you do your thing. But what I did find was all through that time was there at Carl Junction United Methodist Church, where my wife and I were attending at the time. They were looking for Sunday school teachers. So I was like, sure, I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that. So in 2006, here I am looking for a job, but I volunteer for the 6th grade class, and I'm doing that for a few weeks, and things are going good. 6th grade's easy. Just read them a book as they play, whatever. Y'all should volunteer for that one. But then the youth pastor comes, and he's like, hey, you're doing a great job with the 6th grade. Would you mind maybe helping me out with the junior high? So I switch. I'm like, sure, I'll do that, and I start working in the junior high. It's a little different over there. Junior high is 7th and 8th grade. We split there a little differently, but so we got the junior high, and what I knew then or didn't know then was that once you start helping the junior high, you kind of get sucked into the youth group too. So I start helping with the youth group and volunteering on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights with the youth, and that was great. I was loving it. So I did that for like 5 years, and I'm helping the youth pastor lead and teach and do what I could and play Fear Factor games, whatever, and it was great. I was loving it. So about 2011 rolls around, and the church leadership, they come to me and they say, hey, you're doing such a great job. We would like for you to maybe take over the youth group. Be a part of the youth group, be the leader of the youth group. And I was like, wow, I could probably do that. So I take over the youth group. Things are going great. I'm loving that, but I'm still, all this time, you guys are like, it took you 5 years to figure this out, but I'm still looking for a job as a teacher. And it's not clicking why I'm not getting it. So I start praying about it, and I'm like, God, what's up with this teaching thing, man? And then again, I got that feeling. It's almost like I could hear him, and he's like, Rick, you are teaching. I've been looking for the wrong job. I already had the job God wanted me to have. It was like he had some kind of plan for my life that I wasn't seeing. I wasn't looking because I wasn't listening. I was too busy trying to find what I wanted versus what he had in store for me. Just like with Peter, Jesus could use a regular guy, a regular girl, right where we're at, no matter where our lives are. Jesus can use our gifts and our talents and our abilities, our mistakes even, and our flaws to further his kingdom. That's Peter's story. And if you think about it, that's our story too. So let's get back to the story. We got Peter and Andy, his brother Andrew. We go way back. I like to call him Andy. They're on the shore early morning. They'd been out fishing all night. So they're back at the shore, and they're cleaning their gear, putting their nets away and putting all their stuff away, and it's great. Then all of a sudden they hear this ruckus, and they look up. Here comes this guy all dressed up in his robe and his sandals, and he shows up. He got a big crowd of people, and it's Jesus. They're like, Jesus, what's going on? He just hops right in Peter's boat. He's like, hey, Peter, could you push me out a little ways, hop in, and so I can preach to this crowd so they don't crush me? And I bet Peter, can you imagine what he's thinking? He's like, Jesus, for real, dude? I've been fishing all night, man. Come on, I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. I want to be with my wife. I want to go home and just, relax. Maybe I want to get off work and just go have a beer. Can you imagine what's going through Peter's mind? He's probably thinking all this stuff like, you're crazy, man. You want me to push you out, hop in the boat, and then sit there the whole time you're preaching to this crowd and try to pretend not to go to sleep, kind of like some of you do with Aaron? But he doesn't say that. He just says, sure, Jesus, I'll get in the boat. Let's go. So Peter and Jesus are in the boat. We're hanging out. He's got the oar stuck in the mud so we don't have to move. And Jesus is preaching, telling his thing. He's going on and on and on. And I think Peter's sitting there just like, what's going on? And Jesus is thinking, I got him right where I want him. Got him right where I want him. I'm going to pause here for just a second and recognize what Jesus is doing here. You ever wondered what it's, and we're all like this when we need help or something where you really don't want to ask for help, and maybe when we want somebody to help or we want to go help them, and it's like, no, it's okay. I can do it. Don't worry about it. I got this. And then so you don't really have an opportunity because they already shut you down. But one of the best ways to help someone or maybe just help them get involved in what's going on, that's to ask them to help you. And I think that's what Jesus is doing there. Hey, you can say things like, hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar? Hey, do you mind? Can you come and give me a hand here? It's like, hey, you guys got a truck. Can you come and help me move? That's the kind of stuff that happens. We just ask them to get involved, and that's what Jesus is doing. It's when you ask somebody that you can start to build a relationship with them, and they can start to learn about you, and you can start to learn about them. So here's Jesus. Hey, Peter, give me a hand here. That's what he's doing. And Peter, again, he's like, man, we've been cleaning our nets, Jesus. We're ready to go. And Jesus is like, I know you've been cleaning your nets. And I know it's been a horrible, bad night. You didn't catch any fish and you're tired, but can you just come with me? And Peter's like, sure, I can do that. Like he really wants to, That's how Jesus calls us. He likes to borrow our stuff. He wants to use what you have to further his kingdom, that maybe your abilities, your skills, the way you talk, the way you work with other people, whatever that is, he likes to borrow our stuff. And he can further his kingdom with your stuff if you let him. He can even use your boat if you got one. So he didn't ask Peter to build him a platform so that he could get up on and preach to all the people, right? He didn't ask Peter to do something he didn't know how to do because Peter is not a carpenter. Peter is a fisherman. So he asked him to use what he knows to help him further the kingdom. You see, Jesus doesn't always ask you if you're qualified or if you're ready to help. He just asks you. He doesn't get it, and he doesn't expect us to get it right every time. You see, Jesus, I heard it said this way, doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And sometimes I look at my own life because here I am in front of you speaking to the millions here, and it's scary. It is. I don't know how many of you have ever been on this side of the table, but it's frightening. And it's hard. And there's no way that I have the ability to do what I'm doing, or there's no way that I'm qualified to do this without Jesus. Him using me. It's his voice that I'm praying that you hear, not mine. Let me ask you something. What is your boat that Jesus can borrow? Are you letting him use it? Or maybe do you hear something, or maybe you feel something, and you're like, really, Jesus? Really? I'm tired. I don't have time. I got so much stuff to do on my schedule. I'm overcommitted. Can you just find someone else? I think that's what we hear sometimes when we feel Jesus call us. He asks us all the time. You may wonder, where are these opportunities that I'm supposed to help Jesus? Every Sunday you come in here and you look at the bulletin, and there's opportunities to serve in the church and in the community. You may be studying with at home alone in the Bible, and you're reading something, and you may start to get that nudge like, man, maybe I should apply this to my life. You may be in your life groups, and you're hanging out and you're doing a study with them, and then you start to think, man, maybe I should take what I'm learning in my life group and apply it to my life. Or maybe you see somebody in need when you're driving around, some of those people holding the signs and stuff, and you're like, I should help them, but I'm just so busy. Sometimes that's Jesus saying, hey, listen up. I need your help here. Are you willing? But here's the thing. You feel that nudge, right? And I do too sometimes. And we're stretched to the max. We got so much going on in football and band and baseball, whatever, everything in our lives with our kids and our families. We got so much going on. We've been working all day. We've been working all night. And then Jesus says, hey, can you do me a favor? Will you help me out here? I want you to know, I feel your pain. I'm embarrassed to say, even as one of the pastors here at the church, sometimes I don't feel like it. Sometimes I'm busy too. I am stretched to the max, and sometimes Jesus calls and I don't feel like it. But more often than not, I can be like Peter and I kind of say, okay, sure, Jesus, I'll do this one. I can do it. Because I find in my life that I feel that nudge, and even when I don't feel like doing it, that's when God shows up the most. That's when he touches my heart. That's when I'm filled with joy. And whatever it is, it may be helping somebody, it may be doing something, it may be standing up here today in front of you, but that's when he uses you. And I think sometimes it's not just for you. It may not be for the other person, but God has taken an opportunity to clear up a spot in your schedule, maybe to clear a spot in your heart, to touch your life so that he can bless you. Are you willing? What is your boat? So back to Peter and Jesus in the boat. After Jesus finishes preaching, Peter's like, sweet. He pulls up the oar. He's ready to go. And Jesus is like, whoa. Let's go out into the deep water. Let's go a little deeper. I want you to go out there and cast your nets for a catch. Luke doesn't tell us what Jesus preached here in this moment. That tells me that what Jesus preached wasn't the point. What's the point is how Peter responds to this opportunity to serve Christ. Let's go out into the deep water. So I want you guys to look up here, and I want you to hear what Luke says. This is the point. When he finished speaking to the crowd, he said to Simon, row out farther into the deep water and drop your nets for a catch. And then Peter says to him, come on, man. Are you for real? There's a reason why we don't fish during the day. They can see the nets when we throw them out in the water. We're not going to catch nothing, man. What are you thinking? I think that's Peter's response, but it doesn't say that in Luke. This is what he actually says. Simon replied, Master, we worked hard all night and caught nothing. I love this next line in the text. It says, Peter says this, but because you say so, I'll drop the nets. Because you, the creator of the earth, Lord and Savior of all of us, because you say so, I'll drop the nets. So he signals for his guys, and they come, and they get the nets and the boats, and they go out to the deeper water, and they start fishing. And this is important because you say so. I want you guys to try to memorize that. I had to write it down for Aaron, but because you say so, here's what I know about you, and here's what I know about me. The reason this is put here in the story, Peter is pushing back here. And he's not wanting to do it. He's tired, and he just wants to go home. And he feels like we're not going to catch anything. And he doesn't know how this is going to work out. But because you say so. This happens to me, and it happened to me when I first became the youth pastor. Remember, I told you how I joined the Navy and how I had come home and all that. Well, now I'm in the reserves. And I've just started being the youth pastor, and I'm just finished up a drill weekend, driving home, thinking about the million things I got to do. I got to go to work Monday. I got to clean all my gear from the drill weekend, I got to meet my wife. I got to take care of kids. I got to eat, whatever, just a million things. But life is happening, and I get this call from a member of the church, and they're like, hey, I want you to know something. One of your students' dads, he's in the ICU. He's not expected to make it. And I'm thinking, who am I to comfort these people? I've been the youth pastor all of about a week. Come on, there's got to be someone more qualified than me to go. If you knew the mistakes I've made, if you knew the trouble I've been in, the things that I've done and where I've been, I have 1,000 excellent excuses not to go. But, Jesus, because you say so, I will go. So I go to the hospital, and I visit with the family, and I keep getting this feeling, man, somebody needs to pray for this family. Somebody needs to pray, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, who's the oldest guy? Yeah, he's the oldest. He'll probably do it. He'll pray, right? But then I get that nudge again. I get that nudge, and it's like, Rick, you pray. That's why you're here. I get a chill even thinking that. So I pray. I pray for the family, and I wish I could tell you it was some kind of huge miracle prayer, and that his dad was saved, but it didn't happen. But what I do know is that I was there. I was able to experience an opportunity to be a blessing to that family in need, to be prepared and ready to experience the blessing that God had for me in that moment. I will always remember and cherish that night in the hospital with that family. Because what it told me in that moment and in many moments since then is that God is calling me. God does want to use my boat. God is calling me to help people, to lead people to an act of faith in Jesus. God is calling me to use my gifts and my talents and my abilities to reach people, to teach people about Him. And with 1,000 excellent excuses, I almost missed that moment. And I wouldn't be standing here today had I missed it. You see, what I want to encourage you to do, and encourage is too soft a word. I want to urge you. I want to double dog dare you. When you feel that nudge from God, I want you to say yes. I want you to say, yes, Jesus, here I am. Use me. And He's going to call. And I want you to say, here I am. Use me. So let me finish with the rest of Peter's story. So they dropped the nets, and their catch was so huge that their nets were splitting. They signaled for their partners in the other boats, come and help them. They filled the boat so full that they were about to sink. Now when Simon Peter realizes that the catch is so full, he falls at Jesus' knees. Leave me, Lord, for I am a sinner. Jesus freaks out here because in that moment he realizes that the man in the boat is more than just some mere mortal. He's the Lord of Lords, King of Kings. Who is it that calls the fish from the deep by the thousands to jump into our nets to fill our boats if it wasn't for the one who created them? And Jesus is awesome. He realizes he's freaking out and he's scared. And the next line he says this, don't be afraid. From now on, you will be fishing for people. You will be fishing for people. And we're all here today. So I want to wrap it up this way. To be a Christian is simple, right? Jesus asked us to just follow Him. Read his word, dig into God's word, and follow him. Then he gives us a mission or a command. He says, go and fish for people. And he asks us in the midst of this that we are starting a movement. Jesus wants this movement to grow and to go, and that's why he tells us to go. And he's doing that still today, building his kingdom. There are other people who are on a mission. There's this guy, his name's Richard Spencer, and he's a white nationalist who's going around college campuses recruiting people. And I heard a quote from him. And he says this: equality is for losers. Greatness is what matters. Let's form a white nation and send all the other people packing. That's people. He's out there recruiting people. But Jesus is on a mission, right? Jesus is fishing for people too. He invites them to come and join him. He invites them and expects us all to love him with all our heart. He's going to teach us and tell us how to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. He's calling us into a movement where we're going to love our enemy. We're going to transform the world as we bring the message of the gospel to the world. We're going to invite people to be a part of this mission that will heal a broken and messed up world. He calls this all. And he says, can I use your boat? What are you going to say? Let's go fish for people. Let's go fish for people. All we got to do, every single morning, we wake up and we got to pray and be like, God, how can you use me today? What do I have that you can borrow? You know, once we figure that out, we got to figure out how can we be the best representatives of Christ? How can we be the type of person that draws people to him? What's even harder for me, I think, sometimes is I need to be the best tasting worm on the hook every Sunday, every day, every week when I come up here and I bring a message from God. But we are all called to be fishers of men. Will you join me? Our job is to draw him to Christ. Someone drew you to Christ. Lots and lots of people in my life drew me to Christ. And for today, that is the good news. In the name of the Father who created us, and the Son who sustains us, and the Holy Spirit who saves us. I want to say a prayer, and I want you guys to pray this with me. It's just a simple one word.